Daisy Kane had lost everything for telling the truth. Her license, her career, her future. So when a blood-soaked stranger knocked on her door at midnight, holding a dying baby, she knew opening it would destroy what little she had left. Before we continue, if you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tailies matter. Now let's dive into a story. She stood in the narrow hallway of her apartment, holding an envelope she'd already opened twice. The letter inside was from Jefferson Memorial Hospital's legal department. Official, cold, final. Medical license suspended pending investigation. Breach of patient confidentiality. Unauthorized disclosure of internal matters. The words blurred together. She reported them. The kickbacks from pharmaceutical reps, the altered patient records, the deliberate misdiagnoses to justify expensive procedures. She followed protocol, gone through proper channels, believed the system would protect whistleblowers. She'd been naive. 4 months. That's how long it had been since they'd escorted her out of the pediatric wing in front of patients, parents, colleagues. 4 months since her career as Dr. Daisy Kane had ended, and her new life as that girl who couldn't keep her mouth shut had begun. The apartment reflected her fall. One cramped bedroom she shared with her 14-year-old brother, Kofi. A kitchen the size of a closet. Walls so thin she could hear Mrs. Chen's television through the plaster, always tuned to the same crime shows, the ones about organized crime families and federal investigations. Daisy walked to the window. Rain hammered the glass in sheets, distorting the streetlights below into streaks of yellow and red. The storm had been building all evening, and now it unleashed itself on the city with biblical fury. Weather reports called it a 100-year event. The kind of storm that shut down bridges and flooded subway stations. The kind of storm that drove desperate people to desperate acts. She glanced at the kitchen table where Kofi's acceptance letter sat, weighted down by a coffee mug. Columbia University, full scholarship for academics, $8,000 still needed for housing and fees, money she didn't have, money she'd never have now. Her stethoscope hung on a hook by the door, gathering dust. The only piece of her old life she'd kept. Everything else, her white coats, her medical textbooks, her ID badge with the smiling photo, she'd boxed up and shoved under the bed where she wouldn't have to look at them. Some nights, she wondered why she'd kept the stethoscope at all. A doctor without a license was just someone who knew too much about how people died. Thunder cracked so violently the building seemed to shudder. The lights flickered once, twice, then held. Daisy held her breath. The electricity bill was 2 weeks overdue, if the power company cut them off during this storm. She couldn't finish the thought. A sound cut through the rain, rhythmic, urgent, desperate. Knock, knock, knock. Daisy froze. Nobody knocked on doors in this neighborhood at midnight. You texted first, called ahead, made your presence known from the safety of daylight. This part of the city had rules, and rule number 1 was, unexpected visitors after dark meant trouble. The knocking came again, harder this time. Boom, boom, boom. Through the peephole, Daisy saw him. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, water cascading off a leather jacket that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Dark hair plastered to his forehead. A face carved from stone, sharp jaw, prominent cheekbones, eyes that seemed to see straight through the door into her soul. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the bundle in his arms. A baby, maybe 6 months old, wrapped in a soaked blanket that had once been blue but now looked gray in the dim hallway light. The infant's face was visible, tilted back against the man's chest, skin flushed an angry red that Daisy recognized instantly. Fever, dangerously high. And there, on the man's jacket sleeve, on his hands, smeared across the baby's blanket, blood. Fresh enough to still be dark, spreading in the rain like watercolor paint. Every instinct Daisy had cultivated in medical school, every lesson about personal safety, every news story about home invasions and assaults screamed at her to keep the door locked, to call 911, to pretend she wasn't home. This man was danger incarnate. She could see it in the way he held himself, coiled like a spring, ready for violence. In the predatory stillness of his gaze. In the expensive watch glinting on his wrist, a watch that said he didn't belong in this neighborhood any more than a wolf belonged in a petting zoo. The baby's mouth opened in a silent cry, too weak to make sound. Daisy's hand moved to the deadbolt. Medical professionals learn to assess situations in seconds. The ABCs of trauma: airway, breathing, circulation. Before conscious thought, before fear, before self-preservation, the training kicks in. Infant, approximately 6 months. Fever, likely 104 or higher based on skin presentation. Possible febrile seizure imminent. Respiratory distress evident. Time-sensitive emergency. She, taken an oath once, in an auditorium full of proud families and hopeful graduates. First, do no harm. I will remember that I remain a member of society with special obligations to all my fellow human beings. They'd taken her license, her job, her future. But they couldn't take the oath. That lived in her bones now, in the muscle memory of her hands, in the part of her brain that would always choose to save a life over saving herself. Daisy Kane unlocked the door. The man's eyes met hers, dark, bottomless, carrying depths of violence and power she couldn't begin to fathom. Up close, she could see the fine tremor in his arms, the only sign that beneath the predator exterior was a terrified father. "Please," he said. His voice was rough, accented, Spanish, she thought, though refined, educated. "My daughter, she won't stop burning up. The hospitals, I can't take her to a hospital." 1,000 questions fought for dominance. Why not? Who are you? Whose blood is that? What have you done? But Daisy was already stepping back, opening the door wider, her eyes locked on the baby's labored breathing. "Get her inside," she said. "Put her on the couch, move." The man crossed the threshold, bringing with him the smell of rain and copper and expensive cologne. As he laid the baby down, Daisy caught sight of something else, a holster under his jacket, the dark gleam of a gun. She just invited a monster into her home. But monsters, Daisy was learning, sometimes came bearing the most fragile lives. And in that moment, as she pressed her fingers to the baby's burning forehead and began the mental calculations that might mean the difference between life and death, she made a choice. The same choice she'd made when she reported the hospital. The same choice that had cost her everything. The choice to do what was right, no matter the cost. She had no idea that this time, the cost would be her heart, her future, and everything she thought she knew about the difference between good and evil. The storm raged outside. Inside, Daisy Kane began a fight for a life that would change hers forever. Daisy's hands moved on autopilot, even as her mind screamed warnings she couldn't afford to hear. She pressed 2 fingers against the baby's neck, counting heartbeats that came too fast, too weak. 160 beats per minute, dangerously high for an infant. "How long has she been like this?" Daisy demanded, already moving toward the kitchen. 3 hours, maybe 4. The man's voice cracked on the numbers. She was fine this morning, then the fever came so fast. Daisy yanked open drawers, grabbing dish towels, her mind racing through differential diagnoses. Meningitis, sepsis, pneumonia. Any of them could kill a baby this small within hours. She pulled the baby's blanket away and her heart dropped. The infant's breathing was shallow, rapid. But worse, her lips had a blue tinge. Cyanosis, not enough oxygen reaching her blood. "She's not moving enough air." Daisy's training overrode her fear. She tilted the baby's head back slightly, opening the airway. A wet, rattling sound came from the tiny chest. "Her airway is partially blocked. Mucus, fluid, something. If I don't clear it now, she'll stop breathing entirely." The man went rigid. "What do you need?" "Light all of it, and boil water now." He didn't question her. Within seconds, every lamp in the apartment blazed. Daisy heard him in the kitchen, the rush of tap water, the click of the stove igniting. She positioned the baby on her side, supporting the small head with one hand. In medical school, they taught her about improvised pediatric airways. The theory was simple. The execution, with a child's life hanging in the balance and no proper equipment, was anything but. Daisy grabbed a plastic straw from the counter, still wrapped. She tore it open with her teeth. Then she picked up a paring knife, the blade thin and sharp. Her hands didn't shake. They couldn't, not now. "What are you doing?" The man stood frozen, kettle steaming behind him. "Saving your daughter's life. Hold her. Keep her completely still." He knelt beside Daisy, his large hands cradling the baby with surprising gentleness. Up close, Daisy could see his face properly. Handsome in a brutal way, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. But his eyes, fixed on the infant, held nothing but raw terror. Daisy cut the straw at an angle, creating a beveled edge. She dipped it in the boiled water for 3 seconds, enough to sterilize, not enough to melt the plastic. Then, with a steadiness born of 1,000 practice runs on medical dummies, she inserted the narrow tube into the baby's nostril. The wet rattling intensified. Then Daisy placed her mouth over the opposite end of the straw and sucked, quick and controlled. Thick mucus filled the straw. She spat it into a towel, repeated the process. Once, twice, 3 times. Suddenly, the baby gasped. A real breath, deep and full. The blue tinge began to fade from her lips. Her chest rose and fell with blessed regularity. The man made a sound, somewhere between a sob and a prayer. Daisy checked the baby's temperature with the back of her hand, then grabbed rubbing alcohol and tepid water, creating a makeshift cooling solution. She sponged the infant's forehead, neck, and underarms, bringing the fever down degree by careful degree. 20 minutes later, the baby's eyes fluttered open. She looked at her father and made a sound. A coo, weak but alive. The man lifted his daughter to his chest, his shoulders shaking. When he finally looked at Daisy, his eyes were wet. "You brought her back." Daisy collapsed against the couch, adrenaline draining away, leaving her hollow. "She needs a hospital, antibiotics, proper monitoring. This is temporary." "I know." He stood, reaching into his jacket. Daisy flinched, remembering the gun, but he pulled out an envelope instead, thick with bills. He set it on the table beside a black phone she'd never seen before. "Thank you doesn't cover this, but thank you." He was at the door when Daisy found her voice. "Wait, who are you?" The man looked back, half his face in shadow. "Someone who owes you everything, the phone. If you ever need anything, anything at all, call." Then he was gone, taking the baby and the storm with him, leaving only an envelope of cash that felt like a deal with the devil and a phone that would ring exactly once. The night Daisy Kane's old life ended and her new one began. Daisy woke to the sound of breaking glass. Her eyes snapped open in the darkness. For a moment, she thought she dreamed it. Then she heard voices in the hallway outside her apartment. Low, male, laughing. "This is the one, number 42. More laughter. Then the unmistakable sound of something heavy slamming against her door. Daisy was out of bed instantly, her heart hammering. She ran to Kofi's room, shaking her brother awake. He jerked up, eyes wide with the confusion of interrupted sleep. "Get in the bathroom," Daisy whispered. "Lock the door, don't come out until I say." "Daisy, what?" "Now Kofi." The fear in her voice moved him. He scrambled out of bed just as another crash shook the front door. Wood splintered. The cheap deadbolt wouldn't hold much longer. Daisy grabbed her phone with shaking hands, started to dial 911, then stopped. The black phone. The one the stranger had left 3 days ago. It sat on her nightstand, silent and ominous. "If you ever need anything, anything at all." The front door burst open. 2 men stumbled into her apartment, reeking of alcohol and something darker. One held a crowbar. The other had a can of spray paint. "Well, well," the one with the crowbar said, spotting Daisy frozen in her bedroom doorway. "Looks like somebody's home." Daisy's fingers found the black phone. She pressed the only number saved in the contacts. A single digit. 1. It rang once. "Address." The voice on the other end was calm, commanding. She recognized it instantly. The man from the storm. 4215 Ashland Avenue. Apartment 42. They're inside. Lock yourself in a room. I'm 3 minutes away. The line went dead. 3 minutes. Daisy backed into her bedroom, slammed the door, shoved her dresser against it. The men outside laughed harder, the sound twisted and ugly. Come on out, sweetheart. We just want to talk. The crowbar smashed against her bedroom door. Once, twice, the wood began to crack. Daisy pressed herself into the corner, her mind cataloging exits that didn't exist. Second-floor apartment. Windows that opened onto a fire escape, but she'd need time to get them open, time she didn't have. Then she heard it, a new sound cutting through the chaos. Footsteps, heavy, purposeful, coming up the stairs with terrifying speed. The laughter in her living room stopped. Who the hell are? The voice cut off with a wet, choking sound. A body hit the floor. Hard, then another. No gunshots, no shouting, just efficient, brutal silence. Daisy's bedroom door shuddered as someone removed the dresser from the other side. She grabbed the lamp from her nightstand, the only weapon she had. The door opened. The man from the storm stood there, 3 days older but somehow more dangerous. His knuckles were bleeding. Behind him, Daisy could see the 2 intruders on the floor, conscious but curled in fetal positions, gasping. Pack your things, he said. You have 5 minutes, you and your brother, whatever you can carry. Daisy's voice came out smaller than she wanted. What? They found you because of me, because you helped my daughter. His eyes, those dark, fathomless eyes, held something like regret. This neighborhood isn't safe for you anymore. It never was, but now you have a target on your back. I don't even know who you are. My name is James Rodriguez. He said it like a confession. And the people who want to hurt me will use you to do it, so you have a choice. Stay here and wait for them to come back with more friends, or come with me where I can protect you. Kofi appeared in the bathroom doorway, his face pale. Daisy. She looked at her little brother, 14 years old, Columbia-bound, brilliant and fragile and completely dependent on her to keep him safe. She looked at their apartment, the broken door, the violated space that had never felt like home but had at least felt like theirs. Then she looked at James Rodriguez, this man who'd brought violence into her life, but who'd also brought salvation, twice now. Where? She asked. Somewhere they can't reach you. My estate, 20 acres, full security. Your brother will have his own room, his own bathroom. You'll have everything you need. And what do you get out of this? James's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. My daughter is sick, really sick. The fever comes back every few weeks. Doctors can't figure out why. She needs someone who actually cares whether she lives or dies. He paused. She needs you. It was manipulation. Daisy knew that. A perfectly crafted offer designed to appeal to everything she valued. Save a child, protect her brother, escape poverty. But manipulation didn't make it less true. Kofi gets to finish school, Daisy said. He goes to Columbia in the fall, no matter what. Done. And I want to know exactly what I'm walking into. No more secrets. James smiled, and it was the saddest smile Daisy had ever seen. I'll tell you everything, but not here, not now. Pack. We leave in 4 minutes. Daisy moved. She grabbed clothes, Kofi's schoolwork, the photograph of their parents, her stethoscope. The black duffel bag filled quickly with the fragments of their lives. In the hallway, the 2 men were gone. No blood, no evidence, just empty space where violence had been. James led them to an SUV with tinted windows, idling at the curb. A man in a dark suit held the door open. He had the same predatory stillness as James, the same eyes that had seen too much. As they pulled away from Ashland Avenue, Daisy watched her apartment building disappear into the night. Somewhere behind them, sirens wailed. Too late, always too late. Kofi fell asleep against her shoulder within minutes, exhausted by adrenaline crash. Daisy stayed awake, watching the city transform as they drove. The buildings grew taller, cleaner, farther apart. Poverty gave way to wealth in the space of a few miles. 20 minutes later, they passed through iron gates that whispered shut behind them with computerized precision. James Rodriguez's estate sprawled before them like something from a different world. Daisy pressed her face to the window, taking it in. The main house, all glass and stone and modern angles, gardens even in winter, lights that made everything glow. A gilded cage, maybe, but still better than the one she'd left behind. The estate looked different in daylight, less like a sanctuary, more like what it really was, a fortress. Daisy stood at the window of her new room, counting the security cameras she could see. 12, just in her line of sight. She stopped counting when she realized there were probably dozens more she couldn't see. A knock at the door made her turn. Not James. A different man entered without waiting for permission. Tall, blonde, with ice blue eyes and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. He moved like a soldier, every step calculated. Soren Volkova, head of security. His accent was thick, Eastern European, Russian maybe. We need to talk. Daisy crossed her arms. About what? About the rules. Soren walked to her window, looked out at the same cameras she'd been counting. Rule 1, you don't leave the property without clearance. Rule 2, you don't talk to anyone about what you see here. Rule 3, you don't ask questions about James's business. He turned to face her, and his eyes were cold as winter. Rule 4, you don't make mistakes with the child. Her name is Alina. I know her name. Soren's expression didn't change. I've protected that little girl since the day she was born. I was there when her mother died. I've watched James carry her through 3 hospitals in 4 countries looking for answers nobody has. He stepped closer, and Daisy forced herself not to back away. He brought you here because you saved her life. But make no mistake, Dr. Kane. If you fail her, if you hurt her, if you give me any reason to believe you're a threat, I will put a bullet in you myself before James even knows you're dead. The threat hung in the air between them, crystal clear. Daisy met his eyes. I would never hurt a child. Everyone says that, right up until they do. Soren moved to the door, paused. Breakfast is at 8. Alina's medical suite is on the 3rd floor, east wing. Everything you requested has been delivered. Try not to disappoint him, for your sake and your brother. He left. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking. Daisy sat on the bed, her hands shaking. What had she done? She'd traded one cage for another, and this one came with armed guards and death threats. But then she thought of Kofi, asleep in a room 3 times the size of their old apartment. She thought of the envelope James had left, enough money to pay for Colombia, and then some. She thought of a 6-month-old baby who couldn't breathe. She made her choice. Now she had to live with it. The medical suite took her breath away. It looked like something from a private hospital. Examination table, monitors, a locked medication cabinet stocked better than most clinics. And in the center of it all, a crib where Alina slept, her small chest rising and falling. Daisy approached quietly, her trained eyes already assessing. The baby looked better than she had 3 nights ago, but the flush in her cheeks concerned her. She placed a gentle hand on Alina's forehead. Warm, not dangerously so, but enough to worry. She gets like that. James's voice came from the doorway. Daisy hadn't heard him enter. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, the fever comes back. Daisy pulled out a thermometer, took Alina's temperature while the baby slept. 100.6, elevated but manageable. Have previous doctors run a complete blood panel? Daisy asked, making notes on the tablet beside the crib. 3 times. Everything comes back normal. What about autoimmune markers, inflammatory indicators? They said it was all within range. Daisy frowned. Cyclic fevers in infants usually pointed to infection or immune dysfunction. But if the standard tests showed nothing, they were missing something. She thought back to her pediatric residency, the rare cases they'd studied. I need to see all her medical records, everything, and I want to run a test for familial Mediterranean fever. It's rare, but it presents exactly like this. Recurrent fevers, no obvious infection, everything else normal. James moved closer, hope flickering in his eyes. No one's mentioned that. Because most doctors don't think to look for it unless there's family history. It's genetic, usually found in Mediterranean populations. She paused. Was Alina's mother from that region? Greek, her family was from Crete. Something clicked in Daisy's mind, the pieces fitting together. That's it. That has to be it. FMF is most common in people of Mediterranean descent. The fever cycles, the timing, everything fits. Can you treat it? If I'm right, yes, it's called colchicine. We start her on a low dose, monitor her response. Most children respond beautifully. The fevers stop completely. Daisy looked at Alina, sleeping peacefully, unaware that she might finally have an answer. But I need to confirm it first. There's a genetic test. James pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. Whatever you need, whatever it costs. It's not about cost, it's about time. The test takes 2 weeks. I can have results in 3 days. Daisy didn't ask how. She was learning that James Rodriguez existed in a world where normal rules bent to his will. Alina stirred, her eyes opening. When she saw Daisy, she smiled. A real smile, gummy and perfect. Something in Daisy's chest cracked open. This baby. This innocent, sick baby who'd done nothing wrong except be born into a world of violence. I'll figure this out, Daisy whispered, touching Alina's tiny hand. I promise. Behind her, James said nothing. But when Daisy turned, she saw something in his face she hadn't seen before. Trust. Fragile and new, but there. Daisy found him in the kitchen at 1 a.m, standing over a pot of something that smelled like home. Real home, not the instant ramen kind. He'd traded his expensive suit for dark jeans and a worn t-shirt. Without the armor of tailored fabric, he looked younger, more human. Can't sleep, James asked without turning around. Alina's fever broke an hour ago. I wanted to make sure it stayed down. Daisy hovered in the doorway, uncertain. The kitchen was huge, all marble and stainless steel, but somehow James made it feel intimate. What are you making? Caldo de pollo, my grandmother's recipe. He gestured to the counter. Sit, you haven't eaten dinner. It wasn't a question. Of course he knew. He probably knew everything that happened in this house. Daisy sat. She watched James move around the kitchen with surprising ease, chopping cilantro, squeezing lime. His hands, the same hands that had bloodied 2 men in her apartment, handled the knife with gentle precision. My grandmother raised me, James said, ladling soup into 2 bowls. In Medellin, after my parents died. He set a bowl in front of Daisy, steam rising between them. She used to say that a man who can't feed himself is a man who can't survive, so she taught me to cook. Daisy took a spoonful. The broth was rich, complex, perfect. This is incredible. She'd be glad to know I remember. James sat across from her, but didn't touch his own bowl. I need to tell you about Alina's mother. You should know, before you get more involved. Daisy set down her spoon. You don't owe me your story. Yes, I do. You're caring for her daughter. You have a right to know what you're protecting her from. The weight in his voice made Daisy's chest tighten. Her name was Sophia. She was a translator. Greek, English, Spanish, 3 other languages I can't even pronounce. James's eyes went distant, seeing something Daisy couldn't. I met her at a gallery opening in Manhattan. She was translating for an artist. I was there laundering money through art sales. The honesty was brutal. No softening, no excuses. She had no idea who I was, what I was. I told her I was in import-export, which technically wasn't a lie. His laugh was bitter. She fell in love with the man I pretended to be. By the time she found out the truth, she was 6 months pregnant. Daisy's throat tightened. She could see where this was going. Sophia wanted to leave. I begged her to stay, promised I protect her, protect our baby. Promised I'd build a legitimate business, walk away from the family. James finally looked at Daisy and his eyes were raw. I was lying, not about loving her, but about leaving. I thought I could have both, the empire and the family. What happened? She died giving birth. Complications the doctors said were normal, just bad luck. But I know better. His hands clenched on the table. The stress, the fear, living every day knowing that the man she loved was a monster, that killed her just as surely as any bullet would have. Daisy reached across the table before she could stop herself, covering his hand with hers. You can't know that. I do know it. I watched her fade for 9 months. Watched the light in her eyes go out every time I came home with blood on my hands I couldn't explain away. He turned his hand over, gripping Daisy's fingers like a lifeline. She made me promise, right before the end, that I'd keep Alina safe, that I'd give her a normal life away from all of this. Is that why you can't take her to hospitals? Why you needed me? James nodded. Too many questions, too much attention. The moment I walk into a hospital with her, people start looking into who I am. And when they look, they find things. Things that could destroy her chance at the life Sophia wanted. Daisy understood then. The full picture. James Rodriguez wasn't just a criminal protecting his empire. He was a father trying to honor a dead woman's wish while trapped in a world that wouldn't let him go. The genetic test results came back this afternoon, Daisy said softly. You were right to push for speed. It's familial Mediterranean fever. I can start her on treatment tomorrow. James closed his eyes, and for a moment he looked like he might break. You're saving her life, again. That's what I do, what I'm supposed to do. Daisy squeezed his hand. But James, you need to understand something. Medicine can treat Alina's fever, but she's going to grow up. She's going to ask questions about her mother, about you, about why she lives in a fortress with armed guards. I know. And when that day comes, you're going to have to choose. The Empire or your daughter, for real this time, not a promise you can't keep. James looked at her, and something shifted in his expression, something that made Daisy's heart skip. What if I told you I've already started choosing? He said quietly. That for the first time in 15 years, I can see a way out. I'd say I want to believe you. But you don't. I don't know you well enough yet to believe you. Daisy pulled her hand back, even though part of her wanted to leave it there. But I want to, for Alina's sake. James smiled, sad and genuine. That's more than I deserve. They finished their soup in comfortable silence. Two people from different worlds, bound together by a sleeping baby upstairs and promises neither of them knew if they could keep. If you're feeling anything right now, prove it. Hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens to Kofi, because yes, it gets worse. And if you don't subscribe, you'll never know if Daisy survives what's coming. Your choice. Daisy was checking Alina's vitals when the house changed. She felt it before she understood it. The air grew heavy, charged with the kind of tension that comes before violence. Outside the medical suite, footsteps multiplied. Voices dropped to urgent whispers. Soren appeared in the doorway, his face carved from stone. Take Alina to the safe room. Now, 3rd floor, west wing behind the bookshelf. Code is Alina's birthday. What's happening? Now, Dr. Kane. Daisy scooped Alina from the crib, grabbed the emergency medical bag she kept packed. The baby sensed the fear, started to fuss. Daisy held her close, murmuring reassurance she didn't feel. The safe room was exactly where Soren said. A panel behind the bookshelf, biometric scanner, steel door thick enough to survive a blast. Inside, monitors showed every angle of the estate. Daisy told herself not to look, to focus on Alina, on keeping her calm. But her eyes found the main entrance screen anyway. 3 black SUVs had pulled through the gates. Men emerged, all dressed in expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the weapons underneath. And in the center, a man who made Daisy's blood run cold even through a screen. Tall, silver-haired, beautiful in the way predators are beautiful. He moved like he owned the world and was merely tolerating its existence. James met him at the door. Even from this distance, Daisy could see the change in him. The man who'd made her soup had disappeared. In his place stood someone else entirely. Shoulders back, face empty, eyes dead. The Jaguar, that's what the news called him. The ghost who controlled half the city's underground. Daisy had heard the name whispered in the hospital, in her old neighborhood. She'd never connected it to the exhausted father who sat with his sick daughter at 3 a.m. She turned on the audio feed. She shouldn't, but she couldn't look away. Valentin, James's voice was ice. You're not welcome here. The silver-haired man smiled. Valentin Dragos. Daisy recognized the name from crime reports. Head of the Dragos family, rival, enemy. That's no way to greet an old friend, James. Drago's accent was thick, Eastern European. I come bearing gifts, information, about your new house guest. Daisy's heart stopped. I don't know what you're talking about. The doctor, pretty thing, former medical license, whistleblower, brother at Columbia. Drago's pulled out his phone, swiped through photos. Daisy saw herself on the screen, leaving the estate, in the garden with Alina. Photos taken from outside the walls. You've gotten soft, Jaguar, bringing civilians into your home, caring about things that can be taken away. James didn't move, but something in the air shifted, became deadly. If you touch her or her brother, there won't be enough of you left to bury. Drago's laughed. There it is, the legendary temper. I was beginning to think you lost your edge. He stepped closer, invading James's space deliberately. Here, what's going to happen? You have a shipment coming through the port next week. 40 million in pharmaceuticals. You're going to let it disappear. Consider it a gift to me. Payment for my silence about your little doctor and her very vulnerable baby brother. Get out of my house. Or what? You'll start a war over a woman you've known for 3 weeks. Drago's shook his head. You've changed, James. The old you would have cut your losses, would have understood that in our world, attachments are weaknesses, liabilities. The old me is dead. No, he's just sleeping, but don't worry, I'll wake him up. Drago's turned to leave, paused. 1 week, Jaguar. The shipment disappears or the doctor does, your choice. The SUVs pulled away. James stood at the door, unmoving, until they vanished beyond the gates. Then Soren appeared beside him, and Daisy heard every word through the monitor. We can move them tonight. Safe house in Vermont. New identities. No, James's voice was hollow. Running won't stop Drago's, it never does. He's testing me, seeing if I'll fold. And if you do, he'll go after the girl, the brother. You know he will. I know. Daisy's hands shook. She looked down at Alina, sleeping peacefully in her arms, unaware that her father's world was about to explode. The safe room door opened. James stood there, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked afraid. I'm sorry, he said. I should have sent you away the moment I realized Drago's was watching. Should have known better than to think I could protect you. Daisy stood, still holding Alina. What are you going to do? Give him what he wants. The shipment, it's just money. He won't stop there. Men like that never do. Daisy didn't know where the certainty came from, but she felt it in her bones. He'll keep taking until you have nothing left to give. James crossed to them, took Alina gently from Daisy's arms. The baby stirred, made a soft sound, settled against her father's chest. And Daisy saw it, the tremor in James's hands, the crack in the armor. The Jaguar, the legend, the monster, all of it was just a mask worn by a terrified father who'd lost one woman he loved and couldn't bear to lose another. Wait, another. The thought hit Daisy like a physical blow. When had she become someone James Rodriguez loved? I need you to trust me, James said quietly. Can you do that? Daisy looked at him, at the man holding his daughter like she was made of glass, at the criminal who'd killed to protect her, at the human being trapped between two impossible choices. Yes, she whispered, I trust you. James closed his eyes, and Daisy wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Or the only choice that mattered. The dress hung in Daisy's room like an accusation. Midnight blue silk, designer label she couldn't pronounce, price tag she'd removed without looking because the number made her dizzy. A note pinned to the hanger in James's handwriting. I need you tonight. Please trust me. Soren appeared at 7 sharp, his expression unreadable. The gala starts in an hour. James wants you ready in 30 minutes. Why am I going to this? Daisy asked, though she was already reaching for the dress. Because someone in his organization is feeding information to Drago's. Someone who'll be at this event. And they need to see that you're not afraid. Soren paused. Even if you are. Daisy's hand stilled on the silk. I'm bait. You're a message. There's a difference. 28 minutes later, Daisy stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. The dress fit like it had been made for her body specifically. Probably had been. Her hair, usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, fell in soft waves. Makeup she didn't know how to apply had been handled by a woman who appeared, worked silently, and disappeared. James was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than a year of Daisy's old rent, but it was the look on his face that stopped her breath. Hunger and reverence and something darker she couldn't name. "You're beautiful," he said simply. "I'm terrified." "Good, fear keeps you sharp." He offered his arm. "But tonight, you're not a doctor in over her head. You're my partner, the woman who saved my daughter's life, and everyone in that room will know it." The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum, the temple of Dendur glowing under strategic lighting. Daisy recognized faces from magazines, from news reports. Politicians, CEOs, people who shaped the world with money and influence. And criminals, she could spot them now. The ones who stood like James, who watched doors instead of art, who touched their jacket pockets where weapons rested. James kept her close, his hand on the small of her back. Possessive, protective. Every introduction was a calculation, every smile a weapon. "This is Dr. Daisy Kane. She's staying with me, caring for my daughter." The words were simple. The meaning underneath was crystal clear. Touch her, and you touch me. An hour in, James leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "See the man by the bar? Gray suit, red tie. That's Marcus Chen. He runs my port operations. Watch his face when I dance with you." "Why?" "Because if he's the traitor, he'll react. Drago's told him to watch for weaknesses. You're my weakness now. He'll show himself." James led her to the dance floor as a string quartet began a waltz. His hand settled at her waist, pulling her close enough that she could feel his heartbeat through the layers of expensive fabric. "I don't know how to do this," Daisy whispered. "Just follow me." They moved, and despite everything, Daisy found the rhythm. James was an excellent dancer, smooth and confident. He spun her, dipped her, made it look effortless. "Chen just pulled out his phone," James murmured. "He's texting someone, not looking at us, but his jaw is tight, angry. Maybe he just doesn't like parties." "Maybe." James's eyes met hers, and the intensity made her stumble. He caught her easily. "Or maybe he's reporting to Drago's that I've fallen for you." "Have you?" The question escaped before Daisy could stop it. James's hand tightened on her waist. "What do you think?" "I think this is the worst possible time for this conversation." James smiled, genuine and devastating. "Agreed, but we're having it anyway." He guided her off the floor, through glass doors into the museum gardens. The temperature dropped 20 degrees, but Daisy barely felt it. They were alone among sculptures and winter-bare trees. "I brought you tonight because I needed to identify the traitor," James said. "That part was true. But I also brought you because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this, whatever this is." Daisy's back hit a stone wall. She hadn't realized they'd been moving. "James, you don't belong in my world. I know that. You're good, genuinely good, and I'm so far past redemption I can't even see it anymore." His hand came up, cupped her face with surprising gentleness. "But when I'm with you, when I watch you with Alina, I can almost believe I could be different. Better." "You can be. You are being different." "Am I? I brought you to this gala knowing Drago's has eyes everywhere. Knowing I was putting you in danger just by standing next to you. That's not better. That's selfish." Daisy reached up, covered his hand with hers. "Then we're both selfish, because I could leave. You've offered multiple times, and I keep staying." "Why?" "Because of Alina, because of my brother having a future, because—" She stopped, the truth too big to speak. "Because," James pressed, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Because when you look at me like this, I forget all the reasons I should be afraid of you." James kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative. A kiss that tasted like desperation and desire and decisions neither of them could take back. Daisy kissed him back, her fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed warnings. This was wrong, dangerous, impossible. This was also inevitable. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, James rested his forehead against hers. "I found my traitor," he said roughly. "Chen texted Dragos 3 times while we were dancing. Soren confirmed it." "What happens to him?" "Nothing you need to see. Nothing that touches you." But it would touch her, because everything James did, every choice he made in his world of blood and power, it all touched her now. She'd fallen in love with a monster. And God help her, she didn't want to climb back out. Daisy was teaching Alina to stack blocks when her phone rang. Not the regular phone, the black one, the one that only rang for emergencies. James's voice was hollow. "Where, Kofi?" Ice flooded Daisy's veins. "He's at school. He has calculus until 3, then debate practice." "Why?" "Call him, right now." Daisy pulled out her regular phone with shaking hands, dialed Kofi's number. It rang once, twice, 5 times, voicemail. "He always answers," Daisy whispered. "Always. I made him promise after we moved here." James was already moving. She could hear it through the phone. Footsteps, doors opening, voices shouting orders. Soren's pulling campus security footage. "Stay with Alina. Lock the medical suite. Don't open the door for anyone but me." The line went dead. Daisy gathered Alina into her arms, the blocks forgotten. The baby sensed her fear, started to cry. Daisy held her close, rocking automatically while her mind raced through terrible possibilities. Kofi was careful, smart. He knew to stay in public spaces, to never walk alone after dark, to call if anything felt wrong. But careful didn't matter when men like Dragos wanted to send a message. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Daisy's thumb hovered over it, every instinct screaming not to look. She looked. A photo, Kofi sitting in a chair, hands zip-tied behind his back. His left eye was swelling shut. Blood trickled from his nose, but he was alive, conscious, terrified but alive. The text below the photo was simple. "The shipment wasn't enough. Now I want the port. You have 48 hours to transfer operations to me. Otherwise, the boy becomes a lesson in what happens when the Jaguar grows soft." Daisy's hands shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. This was her fault. She stayed when she should have run. Let herself care about James when caring made her a weapon Dragos could use. Let Kofi stay at Columbia when she should have sent him far away. The door burst open. James stood there, Soren behind him. James's face was a mask of cold fury, but his eyes held the same terror Daisy felt. "They took him from the library," Soren reported. 3 men, van with no plates. Campus security didn't react until it was too late. Footage shows they knew exactly where he'd be, exactly when. They've been watching him for weeks. "Dragos sent this." Daisy held out her phone with numb fingers. James looked at the photo, and something in him went perfectly still. The kind of stillness that comes before an explosion. When he spoke, his voice was barely human. "Where?" He didn't say, just that you have 48 hours to give him the port or Kofi becomes a lesson. Daisy's voice broke on her brother's name. "James, he's 14. He's just a kid who wants to study engineering and argue about politics. He has nothing to do with any of this." "I know." James handed the phone to Soren. "Trace it. I don't care if Dragos used encrypted relays from 6 countries. Find where that photo was taken." "It could take days." "You have 6 hours." Soren disappeared. James moved to Daisy, pulled her and Alina into his arms. Daisy collapsed against him, her breath coming in short gasps that felt like drowning. "This is my fault," she choked out. "I brought this into his life. I should have left the moment Dragos showed up. I should have taken Kofi and disappeared. If you'd left, Dragos would have hunted you down anyway. This was always going to happen. The moment he saw that you mattered to me, Kofi became a target." James's arms tightened around her. "But I swear to you, on everything I have, I will get your brother back." "How? You give Dragos the port, he wins. He'll own half your operation. You'll lose everything you've built." "I don't care about the port. I don't care about the operation." James pulled back, forced Daisy to look at him. "I care about you, about Alina. About a 14-year-old kid who deserves to grow up and argue about politics. That's what matters. Everything else can burn. James, you don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. He pressed his forehead to hers, his breath ragged. I told you in the garden that you made me want to be better. This is me being better, choosing people over power, choosing the right thing even when it costs me everything. Daisy closed her eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks. Alina squirmed between them, reaching up to touch her father's face with small, confused hands. What if we can't find him in time? Daisy whispered the fear she'd been holding back. Then I give Dragos what he wants and spend the rest of my life hunting him down piece by piece. James's voice went dark, deadly. But we will find Kofi, and when we do, Dragos will learn why they call me the Jaguar. Soren reappeared in the doorway, laptop in hand. Got something. The photo metadata was scrubbed, but they made a mistake. Background reflection in the window behind the kid. It's a warehouse. Red brick distinctive cornice work. I know that building. Where? Red Hook, abandoned fish processing plant by the water. Dragos owns it through a shell company. He's not even trying to hide. James's smile was terrifying, because he thinks I'm cornered, that I won't risk an all-out assault with Kofi in the crossfire. He kissed Daisy's forehead, then Alina. Stay here, both of you. This ends tonight. James, wait. Daisy grabbed his arm. Dragos is expecting you. This is a trap. I know, but he made one critical mistake. What? James looked at her, and Daisy saw the Jaguar fully unleashed, the predator with nothing left to lose. He forgot that the most dangerous version of me isn't the one protecting my empire. It's the one protecting my family. He was gone before Daisy could respond, Soren and a dozen armed men following in his wake. Daisy sank to the floor, Alina in her lap, and prayed to a god she wasn't sure was listening that the man she loved would come back, and that her brother would come back with him. Because if they didn't, she knew exactly what she'd become. The same thing James had been all along. A monster with nothing left to lose. Daisy waited 20 minutes after James left. Then she called the number that had sent Kofi's photo. Dragos answered on the first ring. Dr. Kane, I was wondering when you'd call. Let me trade myself for my brother. Daisy's voice was steadier than she felt. That's what you really want, isn't it? To hurt James by taking me. Kofi is just leverage, but I'll come willingly. Right now, just let him go. Silence. Then Dragos laughed, low and amused. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, but you're wrong about one thing. I don't want to take you from James. I want him to watch you die. There's a difference. Then you get both. I come to you, and when James arrives to rescue me, you have your moment. Everyone gets what they want. Except you die, and your brother watches. My brother goes free first, that's the deal. I show up, you release Kofi, then James and I are both yours. Daisy closed her eyes, praying this insane gamble would work. Come on, Dragos, where's the fun in killing a 14-year-old? He's nobody, but me. I'm the reason the Jaguar has gone soft. I'm the prize. Another pause. Daisy could hear him thinking, weighing the options. The Riverton Bridge, East Side pedestrian walkway. 1 hour. You come alone, unarmed, or I put a bullet in your brother's head and dump him in the river. Dragos's voice turned cold. And Dr. Kane, if you're thinking James will trace this call and stage an ambush, know that I have 6 men on that bridge. The moment I see his people, Kofi dies. This is between you and me. The line went dead. Daisy looked at Alina, sleeping peacefully in her crib. She picked up a pen, scrawled a note for James. I'm sorry, I couldn't let Kofi die. The bridge, come fast. Then she disabled the tracking app on her phone that Soren had installed, grabbed her coat, and slipped out through the garden entrance she'd discovered during late-night walks with Alina. The Uber driver made small talk she didn't hear. Daisy watched the city scroll past, memorizing it. The lights, the people, the life she might never see again. She arrived at the bridge with 10 minutes to spare. The pedestrian walkway was empty, wind whipping off the river hard enough to steal breath. Streetlights cast everything in sick yellow. Dragos emerged from the shadows like something from a nightmare. Kofi stumbled behind him, hands still zip-tied, face bruised but alive. 2 other men flanked them, weapons visible. "Right on time," Dragos said. "I appreciate punctuality." "Let him go. That was the deal." "The deal was you show up alone. But I'm tracking 4 vehicles approaching this bridge from different directions. The Jaguar's men, I assume." Dragos pulled out a gun, pressed it to Kofi's temple. "So we have a problem." Daisy's heart stopped. "I didn't tell him. I swear I disabled my phone. I came alone." "Then he's better than I thought, more devoted, willing to risk everything for you," Dragos smiled. "Perfect. This will hurt him so much more." Tires squealed. SUVs converged on the bridge from both ends, blocking exits. Doors opened. Men poured out, weapons raised. And in the center of it all, James Rodriguez walked forward with the calm of a man who'd already decided everyone here would die. "Let them both go, Valentin." James's voice carried across the bridge. "This is between us. It always has been." "No, it stopped being between us the moment you chose love over power." Dragos dragged Kofi backward toward the railing. "You've become weak, James, predictable, human, and humans break so easily." He shoved Kofi against the railing. The boy's eyes went wide with terror as he looked down at the black water 40 feet below. "Choose," Dragos said. "The doctor or the brother, you can save one. I'll shoot the other and drop them into the river. This is what love costs in our world, James. Everything." Daisy's training kicked in even through the fear. She assessed the scenario like a trauma case. Kofi was smaller, lighter. If he went over, the fall in cold water could kill him within minutes. But she could survive longer, had better odds. "Take me," Daisy said. "Shoot me, throw me over, whatever you want. Just let Kofi go." "No," James's voice was raw. "Take me instead. Let them both walk away. You want to break the Jaguar. Here's your chance. Kill me, take my territory, everything. Just let them go." Dragos looked between them, delighted by the impossible choice. How touching, but I think. Soren's shot came from a rooftop 200 yards away. It hit Dragos in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. His gun went off reflexively. Daisy felt the impact before the pain. Hot, sharp, her left side. She looked down at the spreading red stain on her coat, distantly surprised. Then everything happened at once. James was moving, impossibly fast. He reached Kofi first, yanked the boy away from the railing. Soren's men swarmed Dragos's guards. Gunfire erupted, deafening. Daisy's legs gave out. She hit the concrete hard, her medical training cataloging her own injuries even as the world grayed at the edges. Bullet wound. Left side. Possibly missed vital organs but definitely hit something. Blood loss, shock imminent. James was there, hands pressed to her side, his face twisted in agony. "Stay with me. Daisy, look at me, stay with me." "Kofi," she gasped. "Is he?" "He's fine, safe. You saved him." James's voice broke. "But you're bleeding out. I need to get you to a hospital." "Can't questions your world." "I don't care about my world." James scooped her up, cradling her against his chest. "You're my world. You and Alina and Kofi, nothing else matters, do you hear me? Nothing." Daisy wanted to argue, to remind him about his empire, his reputation, the consequences of showing weakness. But the words wouldn't come. The darkness was pulling her down, gentle and insistent. The last thing she heard before everything went black was James's voice, desperate and shattered, calling her name. Daisy woke to sterile white walls and the steady beep of monitors. For a confused moment, she thought she was back at Jefferson Memorial, back before everything had fallen apart. Then the pain in her side reminded her. The bridge, the gunshot, Kofi's terrified face. "You're awake." James sat beside her bed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Stubble shadowed his jaw. His shirt was wrinkled, spotted with what might have been her blood. But his eyes were clear, focused entirely on her. "How long?" Daisy's voice came out raspy. 36 hours. The bullet nicked your spleen. Surgeon had to remove it, but you'll be fine. Full recovery expected." James reached for her hand, held it like he was afraid she might disappear. Kofi hasn't left the waiting room except to shower. He wants to see you. And Alina. With Soren's wife, safe, asking for you constantly. James's thumb traced circles on her palm. Drago's is dead. His organization collapsed without him. The men who took Kofi are either dead or in custody. It's over. Daisy closed her eyes, processing. What did it cost you? Everything, nothing, depends how you look at it. James stood, moved to the window. Outside, dawn painted the city in shades of gold and pink. I gave up the port, 3 other territories, dismantled half my operations and handed them to the feds in exchange for immunity. Soren called it the stupidest thing I've ever done. And what do you call it? Freedom. James turned back to her, and his face held something Daisy had never seen before. Peace. I've spent 15 years building an empire I didn't want, honoring debts to dead men, trapped in a cycle of violence I couldn't escape. You gave me a reason to escape. James, you can't throw away your entire life for me. I'm not throwing it away, I'm building a new one. He returned to her bedside, sat on the edge of the mattress. I still have legitimate businesses. Import-export like I told Sophia. Real import-export this time. Shipping companies, warehouses, distribution networks, all legal, all clean. It'll take years to fully wash everything, but I'm done with the blood business. Daisy's throat tightened. What about the people who depended on you, your organization? I gave them choices. Stay and transition to legitimate work, or take severance and walk away. Most chose to stay. Turns out, a lot of them are as tired of the violence as I am. James's hand found hers again. Soren is already restructuring security into a private protection firm. Legal contracts, background checks, the whole thing. He says if he's going to risk his life, he'd rather do it without looking over his shoulder for federal warrants. A knock at the door interrupted them. Kofi burst in, his face lighting up when he saw Daisy awake. His eye was still bruised, but the swelling had gone down. He looked heartbreakingly young. You're awake, finally. I've been going crazy out there. Kofi grabbed her other hand. Don't ever do anything that stupid again. You hear me? I'm supposed to be the kid who makes dumb decisions, not you. Daisy laughed, then winced as the movement pulled her stitches. Deal. No more trading myself for hostages. Good, because I got my acceptance packet from Columbia yesterday, and you need to be alive to see me graduate. Kofi's voice cracked. You're all I have, Daisy. You can't leave me. I'm not going anywhere. She squeezed his hand. Promise. Kofi stayed for an hour, filling the silence with nervous chatter about classes and dorm assignments, and everything normal teenagers worried about. When he finally left to get food, James and Daisy were alone again. There's something else, James said quietly. Something I need to ask you. Daisy's heart rate picked up. The monitors betrayed her. James pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside, a ring, simple, elegant. A single diamond that caught the morning light and threw rainbows across the sterile walls. I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other 2 months. I know I'm the last person who should be asking this. James's voice was steady, but his hands trembled. But I also know that life is short and fragile, and I don't want to waste another second pretending I don't want forever with you. James. Let me finish. I'm not asking you to marry the Jaguar. That man is dead. I'm asking you to marry James Rodriguez, father, businessman, man who makes mediocre soup and terrible jokes, man who loves you so completely it terrifies him. He took a shaky breath. Marry me, Daisy. Help me raise Alina. Build a life with me. A real life. Legal. Safe. Boring, even. Everything I never thought I could have. Daisy looked at him. This man who'd crashed into her life during a storm, who'd brought violence and danger and impossible choices, who'd also brought love and family and a future she'd stopped believing in. She thought about the oath she'd taken. First, do no harm. She'd lost her license trying to live by those words, but maybe healing wasn't just about medicine. Maybe it was about taking broken things, broken people, and helping them become whole. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. James's face transformed. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with a gentleness that belied everything he'd been. Outside, the sun rose over the city. Inside, Two people who'd saved each other's lives in more ways than one began planning a future neither had dared to dream. Elena would have a mother, Kofi would have a family, James would have redemption. And Daisy Kane, the doctor who'd lost everything by doing the right thing, had found something better than she'd lost. She'd found home. If this story touched your heart even a little bit, like this video, share it with someone who needs to remember that broken people can heal each other. Subscribe because I post stories like this every week, and honestly, if you made it this far, subscribe. That's the only support you can show me. Thank you.